what's up to everybody on YouTube? It's Luther Wilson III on another real estate session, basically. So as a lot of you know, I'm a real estate investor, real estate broker, representing for Upside Property Services, Kansas City Real Estate. And on this channel, I talk about investing in real estate from the perspective of an operator whose background is in property management and sales. So if you're tapped in, there's a good chance that you're already involved in real estate or looking to get involved in real estate in one way or another, okay? So a big thing that I talk about here is capital strategy and operations for real estate investors and those who are working with real estate investors, and how, you know, all three of those combine together when, used effectively, can really produce a real estate investing business and a real estate investing portfolio type of thing. So in today's session, I want to talk about something that's been on my heart and on my mind the last several weeks, and it has to deal with the disconnect between the capital and the operations, okay? So I've mentioned on some previous videos and on some of my social media posts as well, breaking down those three aspects, going a little bit deeper, okay? The capital piece is pretty straightforward. You got funding and financing, all right? The strategy, when I think of that, I think of doing short-term transactions or long-term transactions if you're doing wholesale, fix and flip, or if you're doing long-term rentals, short-term rentals, medium-term rentals, multifamily, single-family, or commercial, as far as strategy goes. And then, of course, I throw seller financing in there, which is a part of our specialty, okay? And then the operations piece, where you have basically the business and how it runs. In the operations, I think of construction, renovation projects, working with contractors. And then I also lump property management as well as business management in there as well, okay? And that is where I've had the most challenges, my clients and my colleagues. That's where the two biggest pain points are in that operations aspect of the business. Construction, property management, that's where a lot of us have had challenges, a lot of investors fumble the bag. And over the years, I've seen a disconnect, okay? Because the strategy is pretty straightforward, all right? But the capital, not so much, and the operations, not so much. And so, okay, just for those that don't know, I grew up in the real estate industry. My father's been investing for about 35 years. My mom's been a realtor for about 33 years. And so since I was 5 years old, I've been watching how they operate and move. I've had the, fortune or opportunity to see how they work with their clients. And interestingly enough, my father at one point in his career was a property manager doing third-party management for other investors. And my mom as well was a property manager for a short period of her career. And so all along the way, I was able to, watch and observe and see how things flow in the real estate space. And then later on down the road, I became a property manager, worked for a couple different, firms here in Kansas City. And then I eventually got with two different groups along the way. And we started and ran our own property management companies as well. And so I feel very fortunate in that regard as well, because I was able to learn the operations aspects of the business before I started to dive into the capital piece. And it wasn't until around 2018, 2019 that I started to take a deeper dive into the capital aspects of the business. And little did I know, I was looking for and ended up landing a couple clients, and it's called private equity. I didn't even know it was private equity. I just knew that hey, I wanted to grow my portfolio. I had some decent experiences and results, some really good results as a salesperson and as an operator. And I knew that, hey, there's only so much money that I can invest and make on my own. And if I really want to grow this thing to where I want it to be, I'm going to need more hands on deck. And that's where the capital piece came in. And that was really just a handful of years ago. And since then, I've been on this process or journey, if you will, trying to connect those two or bridge the gap. And I see a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions about real estate and real estate investing in general. But even more so, I see this huge disconnect between those with the capital, whether they're a mortgage company or a lender, or if they're an investor and they happen to have some capital. And I see a huge disconnect between that and the operations aspect of the business, okay? And so that's something that I want to dig a little bit deeper into. And it's been something that I've had to sort out, and I'm in the process of sorting out with a couple of different partners. And some of my clients have had to sort through it as well, okay? So one of the biggest things that I see, one of the challenge areas I see is for investors who not only want to grow their portfolio to produce cash flow or revenue over a long or extended period of time, but I also see it with investors who are doing short-term transactions. And it has to deal with short-term debt. You know, there's different types of mortgages out there, there's different types of lenders out there. And when we are using hard money loans or short-term debt to take on projects, acquiring, renovating, reselling properties, or if we're taking on hard money loans or using short-term debt of some type to take on projects where we acquire, renovate, and want to keep those properties for the long term, it gets a little murky. It could get rather messy, okay? And so part of my mission, right, besides wanting to grow my enterprise, is to help other people along the way. That's part of the reason I'm doing this YouTube channel and so forth. I want to educate, inspire, hopefully collaborate with some of y'all out there. And so y'all can get through the process more efficiently. You may not have to deal with as many delays or headaches or heartaches. You may not have to lose as much money as what me and some of my colleagues and clients have had to deal with, okay? And so you just have to, especially now. And this changes, okay? So we're in second quarter 2025. And I don't think I said it before, today's Monday, May 19th, okay? And the environment that we're in, the economy, the way things are going, the way interest rates are, the way the inventory levels have fluctuated, it's created a bit of a storm, and it's almost, in some cases, depending on what market you're in, it's almost caused the real estate market to freeze in a way, or definitely move a little bit slower, okay? And so as many investors that I've met along the way who want to do real estate, a large percentage of them want to do short-term transactions for whatever reason. They want to do fix and flip. They want to rehab, they want to buy the property, they want to renovate it, and then they want to resell it, and hopefully they make 30 grand or 100 grand or whatever they hope to make, right? Well, years ago, investors could do that a lot more efficiently. Properties were cheaper, inventory levels were higher, and it didn't cost as much to rehab a house, okay? And there were more foreclosures and more short sales and more distressed type opportunities. Well, that's a lot different now. And so as the market has changed, as the economy has shifted, we as business owners and real estate practitioners have had to adjust, pivot, and modify how we move and how we operate so that we can stay in business. Because unfortunately, a lot of real estate practitioners over the last couple of years have gone out of business. And I felt like I was pretty close to getting to that point too. So as far as fix and flip, as far as short-term debt goes, you just have to be mindful, okay? Because one thing I realized over the last few years, because of all the changes and what's happening, to me, it seems like the lenders have the upper hand or the leverage, if that makes sense. Because by the time we're borrowing from a short-term debt holder, from a hard money lender, by the time we get through the purchase and renovation, we're in a position where it's a lot harder to succeed or make it as profitable as it was years ago. However, I feel like the public, and especially some of the newer investors and newer practitioners, need to know where we're at and how they can better grow their investment businesses and better serve their clients if that's what you want to do, all right? So, and again, this may change, right? 6 months from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, there could be more inventory because we have a large percentage of the population in the United States that's aging. Okay, how's that gonna look? I don't know, it's hard to say. What are interest rates gonna be like in 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, that sort of thing? So those are huge factors that are essentially out of our control. So we gotta be able to determine how we're gonna maneuver through that process so that we don't get ourselves in a bad situation financially, and so that we understand the risks that we are taking on so that we can avoid the pitfalls and get through to profits and get through to success as real estate investors and practitioners, right? And so, if you want to do short-term transactions, cool. If you want to do fix and flip, cool. Part of me wants to do that as well. Part of me really wants to help more investors through that process, but it really just hasn't made as much sense to me to do that lately. And again, I'm hoping that may change in the future. Okay, so for those who want to do fix and flip, hotel, short-term transactions, you just got to be mindful of, how you're going to be using that short-term debt to get through these projects, because I'm in this similar type of boat where I want to make more stuff happen. I want to move and groove. I have at least 1 or 2 private money lenders who have been wanting to loan me money for the last 2 to 3 years, but because of the changes and because what I have seen on the ground as an operator, right? My clients, my partners, they're busy, they got other businesses, they got their job, they got their life, whatever they got going on, they may not necessarily see it. And so I know this is definitely going to resonate with some of y'all out there. They need to understand, like, hey, it's different now, okay? So that's where the disconnect is between the capital and the terms and the cost of the money and how long it's actually taking to get through a rehab and a resale, or to get through a renovation and a refi. It's different now, right? So if we agree to use somebody's money on a short-term basis and they want it back in 6 to 12 months, or, if you're a practitioner like myself, real estate agent, real estate broker, and you have a client that wants to do that, well, they have to understand what the reality is, right? Because you're the one on the ground helping them. They may not know, right? And so before you sign on the dotted line to borrow money from that lender or to assist or represent that investor, hopefully you're gonna want to educate them and help them understand the reality of what's going on in your market, that sort of thing, so that you don't end up in a messed up, precarious, bad financial situation. Because I've seen too many. I have so many stories about people close to me and people that I've met along the way, colleagues in the space, who want to scale their fix and flip operation. They want to scale their rental portfolio. And in order to do that, they need to use more capital. It could be private capital, it could be hard money loans, and it just causes a weird kind of storm in times like these. And the risk, I did a video last week and I talked about risk mitigation, how we as investors can limit our exposures and mitigate our risk. Well, a huge part of that is making sure that the connection between the capital and the operations is on point, okay? So as you're going forward, just be mindful, right? Especially, it's one thing if you are wanting to do short-term transactions, but it's a whole other thing if you're wanting to grow a long-term cash flow or equity type portfolio that produces, monthly, quarterly revenue over an extended period of time. That's one of my major goals. Some of my partners and clients, the goal for a lot of us is to be able to grow the portfolio to where it produces enough cash flow to support your lifestyle, whatever that is for you. And so it's even more important that the connection between the capital and the operations, whoever's doing that, is on point so that you don't end up with, renters, or in our case, some of the people that I know, we have seller finance residents in a home and we have short-term debt. So you might have a contract for deed that's 20 to 30 years, or you might have a lease option, right, where you're giving them several years to get their financing in order, but meanwhile, the underlying debt isn't clean, okay? So however that looks, I'm just cautioning y'all, so let's just be mindful as you're going through this process. And that's, again, part of it is strategy, okay? The strategy of doing short-term transactions, fix and flip, may not be good to do right now. The strategy of doing long-term rentals and paying investor mortgage interest rates at 7 or 8% may not be on point right now, which is why seller financing as a strategy has grown for us and a lot of people here in the Kansas City market, and I'm sure across the US as well, because it's a whole different strategy, and the being able to connect the capital, efficiently with the operations is a lot more efficient and beneficial when you're doing something like seller financing, so long as your debt is clean. So that's all I got for today. I know I've talked about a couple of different things, capital strategy and operations, and I might have gone on a tangent for a little bit, but if you want to know more, subscribe to the channel, send me a message, reach out. I'm active on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn as well. I'll be happy to talk to you about how we've been able to work through some of these challenging situations and how we've been able to help some of our clients do it as well. All right, so appreciate your time. Stay blessed.